Okay, good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. So my name is Warren Haggerty. I work for the Small Business Administration, and I'm just going to give you some little bit of information about SBA real quick, and then we'll go ahead and get started with the presentation. SBA has a lot of resources that are available for small businesses. We have resource partners that do free one-on-one confidential counseling. There are 3 organizations that partner with the SBA. Small Business Development Center, or SBDC, SCORE, and then the Women's Business Center. All 3 of those organizations do offer the free one-on-one confidential counseling, as well as they all provide various workshops that you can attend in person and or online. They have a lot of self-paced recorded workshops that you can go through as you see fit. The other thing we have is we do offer loans that are handled through participating lenders of the SBA. So if you were to be looking for some funding for your small business, you would go to a lender. They're going to make the credit decision, and then they're going to make the decision whether they need SBA to be the provide some assistance there as well. So that's kind of the 2 general programs. We also get involved in government contracting if that is something you would be thinking about down the road, and we can assist with that as well. We'll go ahead and get started at this point. We are going to go through all the slides initially, and then we'll have a question and answer time at the end. Also, if you would all be so kind to send me an email if you would like a recording, copy of the recording and of the slide deck, I would be happy to forward that to you. But if you could send me just an email saying that way I'd be sure to have your email address, and I will go ahead and forward those to you. My email address is Warren, WARREN, Haggerty, HAGGERTY, at sba.gov. So we're going to go ahead and Royann is from the Department of Health and Human Services. She is a food specialist, and she's going to go ahead and present the slides here for you. And again, like I said, if you have questions, please hold them till the end. You can either send me a message with that question, or you can ask the question live, whichever your preference might be. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Royann.
Good morning. So my name again is Royann Bossidy. I'm with the State Health Department, Food Protection. And I've been with the state with food protection 30 years. I was in the field for 20 years up in Carroll County doing inspections in the field. And I've been in the office for the last 10 years doing, I handle all the complaints and recalls, food defense, emergency management. I have a bunch of different things. So, but today we're just going to talk about different types of food that you can produce in New Hampshire and how to do it safely and to do it legally. So we're going to talk about what agencies regulate food in New Hampshire, what are the requirements for food establishments, and what other resources where regulations can be found. We inspect pretty much all food operations. So we operate under RSA 143A, which requires the food service license. And you can see this list. We inspect food service establishments and retail stores, mobile units, bed and breakfasts, home food manufacturers, which actually are the homesteads, and bakeries, lounges. We do not have jurisdiction over temporary food establishments, occasional food service establishments, food pantries and soup kitchens, child care centers, youth camps, nursing homes, and self-inspecting jurisdictions. The temporary events are kind of like your fairs. Your occasional would be like the church supper or the occasional bake sale. The child care centers, youth camps, and nursing homes are inspected by other state agencies, but not by food protection. And then there are 15 cities and towns that are self-inspected. This is just a quick map to just show you that our state is broken up into districts. We've had some personnel changes, so this isn't totally accurate right now because we're in the process of hiring a new inspector. We still have a part-time position that's open that we're trying to fill. So this is going to get all moved around again. But as you can see, there's by the coloring that tells you the type of districts and the area that each inspector has to cover. The white ones in there are all the self-inspecting jurisdictions. So if you were going to operate in any of those areas, then you would have to speak to those health departments directly. Food protection, we do the food, but we also license and inspect beverages and bottled water, dairy products, milk, cheese, yogurt, ice cream, shellfish, the growers, the harvesters, the shippers, and the sugar packers. And then anybody that's doing wholesale, we put in a food processing category. And those are pretty much that you're not selling direct to consumer, you're selling through other retail stores or restaurants or wholesale brokers. And those tend to be the acidified foods and other packaged foods. So the New Hampshire Department of Agriculture has jurisdiction over raw commodities. So the raw agricultural products would be like the produce and anything that's in its natural state. When you just, and they also do some oversight with meat, poultry and eggs, maple syrup, honey, and pet food. So if you are, if you keep the product, the raw agricultural commodity, then it stays under Department of Agriculture. But if you're, like, say if you're growing lettuce and you're selling it as whole head lettuce, that's fine. But if you're going to chop it up and make it into salads, then that falls under our jurisdiction. Maple syrup and honey, if you're going to add something, another ingredient to that, so it's no longer just the maple syrup or just the pure honey, you're adding flavoring, like to make blueberry maple syrup or something, then you're now making a value-added product, and that falls under our regulation as food protection. And again, RSA 143A is our food service licensor. Within that, you'll get the definitions for occasional, all the definitions for licensing, the occasional versus temporary. There's a list of exemptions, kind of the ones that I mentioned already, the ones that we don't inspect. And then there's also a section for homesteads. We have two classes of homesteads. They're exempt, which means they're not required to be licensed, and then there's non-exempt, which means they are required to be licensed. So definitions for occasional, again, this is if you're going to operate a food establishment, but you're not going to operate more than 4 days in a 30-day period. So if you are, that takes into your church suppers, your bake sales, and that type of thing. If you only do one farmer's markets we don't consider as occasional or temporary. If you do more than one farmer's market, then you're required to be licensed. If you only did Chester's farmer's market, and that's the only one you did, you could do that once a week. So there's your 4 and 30, so that wouldn't require licensing. But if you're going to do Chester and then you're going to go to Epping and Raymond and anything else around there, then you're operating more than 4 and 30, and then you're looking at licensing. Temporary events are in conjunction with a fair, old home weeks, motorcycle week, anything like that where it's a group that comes together. Seafood festival is a temporary event, so we don't license or inspect those establishments, fairs. We do inspect the seafood festival because most of the people that attend there are licensed already with our program, so we just kind of take a look at that, but we don't inspect the fairs. So homestead operation means that it's you're using your own personal kitchen. You're making we restrict you to foods that are not considered potentially hazardous foods. That definition, that new term for that is now temperature, time temperature control for safety, so TCS foods, which means that foods that require refrigeration, though we don't allow those. The homestead operation is your home kitchen in your own residence. And if you have a, it has to be your own personal kitchen. So if you have a basement or an outbuilding or another room and all your food production's in there, you can't be licensed as a homestead because it's not your personal kitchen. It will be licensed as a commercial facility. And then again, we have the exempt and non-exempt homesteads. What do we allow? Again, foods that don't require refrigeration, which are mostly baked goods, candies, dry products, and some jams and jellies, and some acid foods, like barbecue sauces, mustards, vinegars. The acid foods we'll get into a little bit later, but these are the types of foods that we do allow. We don't allow foods, again, that are potentially hazardous. They have a pH that's greater than 4.6 and a water activity greater than 0.85. Water activity is the internal moisture of the product. So the easiest way to explain that is picture a grain of rice. If it's uncooked grain, it's really hard. So there's like no water activity. It's very low water activity. But once you cook that rice, it gets really mushy and it absorbs all that water. So it's the water activity then would be probably up to 0.9 something because it's full of water. So the issue with those is that with the pH and the water activity, bacteria can grow if they're given the right temperature and pH and water activity. We don't allow foods that require refrigeration, so no cheesecakes, pumpkin pies, custards, cream cheese fillings, frostings, salsas, soups, no catering out of your home kitchen. So, and then we don't allow acidified foods, which would be all your pickles and relishes, salsas, hot sauces, and pepper jellies. Most pepper jellies, you're using, usually with any kind of canned product like that, if you have a vegetable in there, most likely it's going to be an acidified food because you have to lower that pH of that vegetable ingredient. So you've got to add acid to it, so that becomes an acidified food. And those are not allowed in homestead. So we do require labels, and so this is just kind of, you don't have to set it up just like this, but the information has to be there, the name of the product, the name and address of the manufacturer, list of ingredients. The ingredients, if it's a product that's already established and it has other ingredients, you really should put all the ingredients of that ingredient, and you would do that with parentheses, as you can see here. And you are required to do allergen declaration, where you pull it out in bold, contains, and then you would put wheat, eggs, milk, soy, walnuts, tree nuts, crustacea, which would be shrimp and lobster, and there's a couple other ones I'm missing, tree nuts and peanuts. But you have to declare those on there. And if you're exempt, the exempt means that you're not required to be licensed. You have to put this statement that says this product is exempt from New Hampshire licensing and inspection. The exempt homestead is under $20,000 in sales. You're selling from your own residence, your own farm stand, farmers markets, and retail stores. And the foods have to come out, they have to be individually packaged and labeled. But you can do that without a license. You are required to be licensed if you fall under the non-exempt homestead, which is over $20,000 in sales. You want to sell your product over the internet, or you're selling it to restaurants, brokers, or distributors. Again, they have to be individually packaged and labeled, but this label, if you look at the label, is going to show you that it's set. You have to put this statement that says this product is made in a residential kitchen, licensed by New Hampshire DHHS. So this is just to inform the consumer that because these products are made in the home, that they're not regulated as they're not overseen as well as the other restaurants. So it informs the consumer that these are made in the home and not in a commercial establishment. Some foods, it's kind of hard to tell whether or not they fall under that potentially hazardous definition or TCS food. So banana bread, zucchini bread, pumpkin bread, depending on how you make that, some of them are really wet. So there's a lot of water activity. That water activity, again, that AW is greater than 0.85. So that would put it into a potentially hazardous food range, because most likely it's greater, the pH is greater than 4.6. So those would have to be tested. Our public health lab in Concord can do the pH and water activity testing. I believe for both it's $15, and you would end up contacting the public health lab to have those particular products tested. Some frostings, depending on the buttercream and cream cheese frostings, those may fall into that category too, that may require refrigeration. And if they require refrigeration, then they cannot be made in the home. So, so this additional testing is just to make sure. And we have had products that have been tested, and some the water activity is too high, and some the water activity isn't. So there are products that are approved, and there are products that aren't. So, so it varies on your recipe. So when we look at the safety of the product and how it's being made, some products require the process review. So the products that we're looking at are going to be something that are canned, or they're hot filled and sealed. There's some kind of hermetic seal to make the product shelf stable, so it doesn't require refrigeration. So jams and jellies require process reviews, barbecue sauces, mustards, hot sauces, because depending on the formulation, those foods can be classified as acidified foods, not acid foods, and so therefore need the process review. An acidified food are low acid foods, which again are typically vegetables, to which acid or acid foods are added, so pickles, relishes, salsa. Acid foods have a natural pH of below 4.6. So a general rule, fruits have low pH. They're below 4.6. They're usually around 3.8. And vegetables, again, are usually above 4.6, more around closer to 5 or a little over 5. So, and again, acidified foods would be required to have process reviews also, but those are not allowed to be made in the home setting. So what is a process review? It's evaluation of how the food is made. So you end up sending your recipe, your processing methods, and your finished product in the jar you're going to sell it in. Those are submitted to a processing authority. New Hampshire, UNH doesn't have a processing authority. So we are, we refer people to University of Maine or Cornell University. University of Maine is good with jams and jellies and acidified foods. People that want to do cold brew coffee or something like that, then we're forwarding them to Cornell, or Maine forwards them to Cornell, because Maine is not doing anything that is a refrigerated product. So they each have their kind of specialties. And when they when they do their process review, they identify the food as whether it's an acid food or acidified food. They do tests for pH, water activity. Brix is the sugar content for jams and jellies. And there are standards of identity that have been set by FDA that it has to have, in order to call it a jam or jelly, it has to have a Brix of greater than 65. If it's less than that, then you can't call it a jam or a jelly, you have to call it a fruit spread. So that's a standard of identity for just consumer fraud or consumer protection. And then sometimes, depending on what the product is, they might do microbial counts of yeast and molds. So again, University of Maine or Cornell are the ones that most New Hampshire people use. And they also identify critical control points within the process, which are what are the steps within the process that have to be controlled to make sure that bacteria can't grow or toxins can't be formed. Typically, those are pH, the water activity, the time and temperature of your canning process, inversion of your jar so that you can have contact with the hot food to the lid, to sterilize the lid, and those are all kinds of critical control points. It also will inform you of any FDA requirements. Again, the standards of identity, if there's specific labeling that has to be put on. Title 21 CFR is the Code of Federal Regulations. With acidified foods, you have to adhere to Part 114 of the 21 CFR. And FSMA is the Food Safety Modernization Act. And then there's special requirements within that, depending on the size and the scope of what your product is that you're making. So for the homestead licenses, the exempt or the non-exempt, even if you're exempt from licensing, that doesn't mean that you're exempt from any of you still have to follow rules. So the rules would mean that you have to have the jams and jellies go through the process review, even if you're exempt, unless you're using the exact recipe from the National Center of Home Food Preservation. So the website is here. It's through the University of Georgia. This allows you not, if you use their exact recipe, then it allows you not to do the process review. But if you tweak it at all, you add a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that, you add a different ingredient, then that jam or jelly has to be reviewed with the process review. And the products that are sold refrigerated or and that are not hermetically sealed or canned, then those don't require the process review. So for the homestead application, we're looking for water test results. If you're using your own, it's obviously it's your home. So if you have a private well, we're looking for bacteria, nitrates, and nitrites. If you're on town water, there's no water test needed. We're looking for process reviews and the results of any products testing that is done, like the pH and water activity testing. We look for a complete list. We ask for a complete list of the products you are making, and we do review those lists to pull out products saying, well, this looks like it might need refrigeration, so you need more information on this, or you can't do this because it's refrigerated. And then a copy of the product label. So we have an idea of what your labels look like to make sure you've got the statement for the exempt or non-exempt homestead, and then you also have all the information that is needed on the label. Because it's your home kitchen, we're looking at only a single sink with a dishwasher or a two-bay sink where you're going to wash, rinse, and sanitize your equipment and utensils. You can use your own residential refrigerator. It can be even your home use. You don't have to have a separate one to refrigerate ingredients like your eggs, milk, butter, that type of thing. But your finished product can't require refrigeration. So only ingredients that are going to then be cooked or processed are going to be able to be stored in the refrigerator. And we're looking at the temperature being below 41. If you have pets, we do allow you to still have a homestead kitchen, but they just have to be out of the kitchen when you're preparing and packaging. And you want to wipe down all the counters and tabletops just so you don't have kitty litter feet up on the counters and dog hair and stuff like that everywhere. So you would just thoroughly clean before you start prepping or packaging. So if you want to make a food that is not allowed under the homestead, or again you want to not use your home kitchen because maybe it's not big enough or for what you want to do and the volume that you are going to be doing, and you want to make another space in your home or in your garage or something, then you're going to need to meet commercial facility requirements. So, and the commercial kitchen is going to be required for these particular foods, the acidified foods, any kind of fermented foods, sauerkraut, kimchi, any special processes, dehydration and things. We wouldn't allow beef jerky or anything like that in your home because we wouldn't allow meat to be processed in your home. but also the other part would be the dehydration step of the jerky. So that requires commercial. And any refrigerated foods or TCS foods cannot be done in the home. It would need to be done in the commercial kitchen. And the difference between the homestead and the commercial kitchen is that now we're looking at commercial refrigeration. We're looking for a 3-bay sink, wash, rinse, and sanitizer equipment. If you have a dishwasher, now it's a commercial dishwasher. We don't allow the domestic unit. And it would be, and you may need, depending on what your products are, you may need a separate food prep sink. You need at least one hand sink, depending on how big your space is, and a mop sink, or water disposal. All floors, walls, and ceilings have to be smooth, durable, non-absorbent, and easily cleanable. In addition to that, we're going to look for water test results, again, if you're private water, septic documents, if you are septic system and you're not in town sewer. This can be a little tricky, so if you wanted to do a commercial kitchen in your home, you want to, before you start buying any equipment or do any kind of renovation, you want to get that approved first, because your home septic system is based on your bedrooms and not food preparation and food production or processing. So you're changing the use to that system, so you have to have approvals to do that through DES and septic approval. The other thing is that if you want to do something in your home, then you definitely want to touch base with your town, because there may be a zoning issue, because you may be zoned as residential and not commercial. And they may look at now as if you put commercial equipment in, you're no longer just a home business, now you're a commercial operation. So you always want to check with your town. If you're building brand new, the facility is brand new, you're not going into a retail space that was already a restaurant or a retail store, then we do require floor plans. You have to submit those for a plan review. And then HACCP plan, sometimes that's required, which is a hazard analysis critical control point, which again, that's a whole, it's kind of complicated, and I refer to you in further slides. I think I refer to that a little bit more. I guess it's this one. So when we go from so you have the homestead, you have the commercial kitchen. Then if you want it wholesale, now your commercial kitchen is considered a food processing plant if you're wholesaling to other businesses, restaurants, stores, and brokers. Again, you're required to have a commercial kitchen. The HACCP plan. So the HACCP plan, again, you go through the entire process of you do a flow diagram of your process of how you make that particular food item, and then you figure out which parts of the critical control points, again, the process review connects to this, so that it identifies that you have to control the pH, the water activity, the temperatures, the cooling down, the reheating, depending on what you're doing, and then a recall plan. So now you've got packaged product that you're now wholesaling to a bunch of different businesses, and even as a homestead, you should have some kind of a recall plan, so that because you should be putting batch numbers on your labels, so that if you are sending them, especially to retail stores, if you find out that you get a complaint that somebody gets sick, or you found out that you didn't process something correctly, and now you've got a safety issue because you didn't have enough vinegar in that product, or whatever reason, you have to get that product out of the marketplace. So you have to have some kind of recall plan to remove that product from sale. And then we're going to go quickly into meat and poultry. If you're doing anything with raising your own meat, they have to, beef, lamb, and pork are required to be USDA inspected. So you would have to have them slaughtered and packaged at a USDA facility. Farm animals, raised game, they like elk, bison, deer, rabbit, they again have to go through some kind of inspection program. So it's a USDA voluntary inspection or state equivalent. USDA looks at game meats as non-amenable species, and non-amenable means that they don't have regulation over it, but because even though they don't have regulation, it defaults to FDA. So, and then it falls under our food code, that then those have to come from the food source. So they would have to go either through the voluntary inspection program of USDA or a state equivalent program. New Hampshire does not have a meat inspection program, which we really need, but we don't have. There's $1 in the budget, so essentially there's no program. But because it's game, it's not under USDA regulation, then you can go across state lines with the elk and deer to like Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont, and then you can ship it back in to sell it in New Hampshire. Poultry is required to be USDA inspected, especially for retail for sales to retail stores. However, there are some poultry exemptions with USDA so that they can be sold from your own farm, your own farm stand, and farmers markets, direct to consumer. So there's also special requirements for poultry and rabbits. So poultry and rabbits can be raised and slaughtered exempt from USDA inspection and be sold to restaurants now, but there's specific requirements. You're only allowed up to 20,000 whole birds for poultry and only 1,000 whole rabbits. The rules are the HB 2303 and the RSA 143.815. This website link here brings you right to the special requirements for poultry and rabbits. We are working with UNH Cooperative Extension Service, and we do offer poultry rabbit workshops. The next one coming up is scheduled, tentatively scheduled for October 24th. And I think it's like $50 for registration, but you have to do that class in order to sell to restaurants. So again, the producers' requirements is they have to go through the educational training. Again, the workshop with UNH Cooperative Extension. What they do is they go through like trying to different sanitation issues, processing, and actually the slaughter and processing, but also the health of the birds and rabbits. So their slides for this program show like different diseases and what a good liver looks like versus a bad liver, and that the animal can't be used at that point if they're diseased. So, which would be something, if you went through a USDA inspection, that's what they're looking for, is to make sure that there aren't any diseased animals or issues, to make sure that the meat is wholesome and safe. So in addition to the educational requirement, you also then have to register with the Department of Agriculture, Markets, and Foods. They issue a certificate that you can then provide to the restaurant to show that you have gone through this training and you're registered, and you then show up on a list of approved producers in a directory on the Department of Agriculture's website. You have to maintain production records, because at any time, even though you're exempt from USDA could get involved and say, show me your records. We want to make sure that you're not exceeding your exemptions. So you should be keeping production records as well as like distribution records of what, how many birds are sold to XYZ restaurant, and so to aid in tracebacks in case there's illnesses associated with your product. And then the labels have, again, the same thing. It's the farm address and that type of thing, and in addition to the safe handling instructions. Restaurants, they are required to make sure that they ask the producer for proof of compliance. So they should be asking for your certificate that was issued, so that they can make sure that you have completed the workshop and you've registered with the farm, registered with the Department of Ag, and also that you're on their directory list. And then they make sure also that you're meeting labeling requirements, and then they have to maintain records of receipt of purchase, and what farm and lot codes and that type of thing. So they've got to keep records also. It's kind of a quick overview. The licensed restaurant is also then supposed to put a disclaimer on the menu that stars any product that is made with the poultry or rabbit, as being this product is raised and processed on a New Hampshire farm and is exempt from state and federal inspection. So that, again, that is a consumer awareness, consumer advisory to the person buying that, to know that it's not regulated, and so it's just information for them. So again, the poultry and rabbit workshops are, UNH and I try to do them twice a year. And if you are interested in further information about poultry and rabbits, then I would recommend that you contact your local UNH Cooperative Extension office, and they can put you on the list of attendees for the workshop. And then, because I know this is going to be given to you as an attachment, the whole slide deck, I just put in some different links for you to see who regulates what, and then the links to get to those agencies. Our DHHS website is kind of difficult to maneuver through. So when you I kind of broke it down a little easier, so you can just go into those. You can copy and paste and put that into your search thing, browser. And for the homesteads, the retail establishments, food processor requirements, the floor plan review. And within the floor plan review document, you'll also find other state agencies that you would need to contact. So rooms and meals tax, registering the name of the business, in the water and septic and those people. Department of Agriculture's website, where you can get more information about poultry and rabbit. The link on this one, that's okay. The link on this one is kind of weird. Can you go back? Yep. It was spelled wrong, but if you try to correct it, it won't click through. So it's rabbit/poultry registration, but it doesn't have the L for poultry. So don't put the L in, because the link won't work. And then FDA.gov, again, you can maneuver through that website to get the 2009 FDA food code. That's the version of the code that we're regulating by for all our food establishments. We are looking at trying to adopt the 2017, but that's probably going to take a year or more to do that. So, but we are looking at upgrading from 2009. If you have questions about labeling, there's definitely guidance documents for what needs to be on the label, how you can declare things. If you have questions about gluten-free labeling and that type of thing, or GMO or organic, then that's all part of that labeling also. Again, HACCP, there's a lot more information about what that is and what you would need to do. And registration of food facilities is usually because you're commercial. If it's a commercial facility, FDA needs to know that you're producing food, and so you have to register your facility with them. It's a two-page online registration. There's no fee for that, but there's exemptions to that too, so you'd have to go in and take a look at that. And then if you wanted more information on recalls, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, FSIS, is where you would find more information with meat-related products, the beef jerky, poultry, meat, and those type of regulations. And then the New England Food Entrepreneurs. This is a great website that's made up of all the extensions, New England extension offices, and it has a lot of information and can even help you with like co-packers or bulk product material purchases and that type of thing. And again, UNH Cooperative Extension, and then the contact for University of Maine, Dr. Calder. And if you on her her website link that brings you right into their process review information. Just remember that that link is meant for Maine producers, so some of the information is meant specifically for Maine and not for us New Hampshire producers. And there's my contact information, so you can either call me or email me. Sometimes it's easier for email, but if you've got really kind of a different kind of product that I need to know more about to understand what it is and what the safety concerns might be, then it's easier to call me. And then that link on the bottom is just to get you right into the DHH website and to the options of paying online, the plan review, and more information for applications and all that stuff. So, open up the questions.
Okay, thank you. So, as Royann just said, at this point, we'll go ahead. If anybody's got any questions, she's ready to answer them. So there is one question. I was just curious about the sale of whole milk. Who regulates that? Is that?
So that would be within food protection. It would be the dairy program. So they inspect the farms that are producing the milk. They also license the haulers. Sometimes it's cooperative. They also do the dairy plants, the manufacturers that are actually bottling the milk, like Hood and Concord. And Stonyfield, they would make yogurt and do things with the milk product.
Okay, so if somebody had their own farm though, and they were, producing their own whole milk and selling it out of their farm,
yes,
same
that
thing.
Would be through dairy programs.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, if there's no questions at this time, we'll go ahead and finish up. I just want to thank you for attending. I hope this was useful. And as I said at the beginning, if you send us your email information, I will be happy to enclose the slide deck as well as the recording of this for your use at a later date. I'll just reiterate my email address so I can know where to send it. It is Warren.Haggerty, and the last name is Haggerty @sba.gov. Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.